So happy New Year, everybody. Hope you had a good time last night, and maybe you're watching this a little bit later than you normally would with your Bible in a year. But there's a few bits that I think are great for a 1st of January passage. The first one is in verse 14 of chapter 23. Talks about how God and you know with all your heart and soul that not one of the good promises the Lord your God gave you has failed. Every promise has been fulfilled, not one has failed. And one of the reasons I love that, the irony of reading that on the 1st of January, is because we're all about to make a whole load of promises that we probably will fail. If you're anything like me anyway, you've failed to keep by the time it gets to the 4th of January. I will never do this again. I will do this every day for a whole year. And of course, then reality bites and it becomes more difficult. But we worship a God who never, ever breaks a New Year's resolution, as it were. Everything he says he totally and utterly backs up. And the reason that's amazing is because we've got a whole load of stuff right here in this book that he says. Every promise that he says in this book, he keeps today. Isn't that incredible? And then you go on, and Joshua is kind of giving a farewell speech. He's about to die, and so he's giving this big speech to the people of Israel, and he's really setting before them a very stark choice. And again, it's worth just considering this on the 1st of January. The choice is, are you going to go and serve these other gods, or are you going to go and serve the Lord? And in order to help them make that choice, he tells them a history. And he says, look, do you remember when God went to Abraham, and then through Abraham's descendants, he promised he would make a great nation, and then he rescued them from Egypt through Moses, and then finally you've come to the promised land, and this is where you are now. And remember the faithfulness of God through all these years, and now effectively make a decision. Do you want to worship foreign gods, or do you want to worship the Lord? And in chapter 24, he has this great kind of saying, which is almost like, I think it's too hard for you to really worship the Lord. But he says, but as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord, in verse 15. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. This year, we have a decision to make. Are we going to go all out for God, or are we going to worship and get distracted and get drawn into other things? And of course, it's not going to be quite as simple as making a decision on the 1st of January, because it is hard and life will throw distractions at us, and there are going to be things that are difficult this year. But we can still aim to be all out for him for the whole of the year. What that might look like for different ones of us may be different this year. I know last year for me was a real year of action and busyness, and I feel like God's been saying to me for the new year, actually you need to just slow down, spend a bit more time with me, take a bit more of a breath, just so you can think and you can pray and you can reflect a little bit more. But I actually felt the previous year he did tell me to go for it, and just lots of the things I've been thinking about for a long time to actually put them into action. What is he saying to you at the start of this new year for you? And whatever it might look like, it will involve the sentence that we just read, serving him in some capacity. So reflect, wonder, ask, make resolutions and make promises, and remember ultimately the reason he's worth following for the whole of this year is because he never ever breaks his promises.